Hi everyone, my name is Badi Ibrahim. I'm Managing Director at IONISx and Director of Digital Learning at IONIS Education Group. This is Isabelle Druet, and she's my colleague, project manager, and she's especially in charge of our engineering schools. Very excited to be here, just like you guys as well. And we've been a long-term friend and early adopter of edX, also early contributor. So we're very excited to learn from everyone during the conferences and also to share our own experiences and best practices. Today we'll tell you about how we've been creating synergies between our higher education institutions, and we'll be talking about flipped classrooms, project-driven pedagogical model. Few words about IONIS Education Group. We're one of the largest higher education group in France. We have schools in all fields: marketing, communication, technology, design, fashion, pretty much everything. And I think the only thing stable at IONIS Education Group is change. We've been changing a lot. We question our model, the pedagogy between everything that we do, and digital learning is driving a lot of the changes. Just a look back at history. Initially, IONIS Executive Learning has been addressing the need for continuing education, and since 2013 we have merged both the continuing education as well as the digital learning aspect at the IONIS Education Group level. So we've been doing obviously a lot of MOOCs, SPOCs, we've been doing flipped classrooms, and we'll tell you about this. Since now 2 years, we're doing a lot more online degrees. So let's dig into that with Isabelle.
Thank you, Badi. So the focus of our talk today will be really sharing experience, tools and processes, and there will be 2 themes for that. In the first part, I will tell you how we have been able to enable synergies among institutions. Actually, we'll take the example of 4 engineering schools in our group, where we have implemented flipped classroom for undergraduate students. And in the second part, Badi will tell you about higher education to lifelong learning with project-based learning for working professionals, explaining you how we have used existing content and deploy it for a wide variety of programs. So we will focus on keys to success and new needs and share our experience. So let's talk about flipped classroom. This is what we wanted to achieve. For obvious reason, our group thought back in 2014 that it was time to adopt more online courses and introduce online courses and deploy a flipped classroom for our undergraduate students in our engineering schools, but also engineering schools, business schools, sorry. So the idea was for each of the schools to have a customized program where you could customize both online and offline by having, like in any flipped classroom, you know, online content, but because we have different schools, we wanted to have also the possibility to customize what would be available online, and also have the possibility to have tutoring, support classes, all the kind of things that you can have with flipped classroom, and have a wide variety of teaching. So this is the this is the situation we have for the engineering schools. We have 4 of them in our group, and each of them has a specific focus or specialization. ESME Sudria is pretty much a generalist engineering school. Subbiotech here is into biotechnology. IPSA is in aeronautics, and EPITA is a school for information technologies. So how do you make a flipped classroom for these 4 very different orientated schools? Well, especially in the undergraduate, at the undergraduate level, there is pretty much there is a good opportunity to make synergies because there is common content, especially in math, physics, and information technologies. So this is where we put our focus, where we put our focus or priorities to start with. We decided to work on these 3 big subjects. And the scenario solution that we opted for was to look at where we could standardize the online components, but also allow for specialization, both online and offline or in face-to-face class. So let's look at it in 2 more details. This is the curriculum for math in the 2nd year, so semester 3 and 4 for our 4 schools. You see here that there are many lines. There are about 40 in total, and there are different colors which correspond to different chapters. It could be probabilities, statistics, different chapters in the mathematics course for the 2nd year. And each chapter is split into different notions. The key notion will correspond to what we call a micro-module. And this is what we use in edX. We define macro-modules which correspond to just 1 line here, so 1 notion. And then each of the school correspond to 1 of the columns here. So you have EPITA, IPSA, ESME, and then Subbiotech. And once we have put all this curriculum, the complete curriculum of the group together, each of the school is going to select with a green box which of the micro-module they are interested in. And they pre-select them before they are produced. And at this stage, this is where we see where we can make synergies and where we build the whole thing in a transverse manner. Because as you can see, for many of the modules, they will be developed not just for 1 school like here, but for 2 like here, or 3 or even 4 schools. The module that we program or input in edX are pretty much standardized. This is because our modules are going to be independent from one another. The typical 30-minute module will include a little text with content and objectives of the module. And then there will be some 1 or more videos depending on the length of the subject. And then training exercises with solutions. So you see that here, this is typically a screenshot of a video followed directly with training questions with solution. This is very important, obviously, which is, it's really part of the learning experience. And then also something that we always have, and we insist in our instructors to develop this systematically, is a summary in PDF format here, which students like to download and print sometimes, where they can add their personal notes or compare, they can compare it with their notes. Also, sometimes there is additional content with links to explore. And at the end, there will be also systematically an evaluation quiz, followed by this component here, which is for feedback. The feedback component is at the end of the quiz, and it will enable us to get some more analytics about it. There are two questions. What was it? It's about the perception of the comprehension and also the quality of the course. Here you see the typical structure, always just one section in each module with sections. There is a high level of coordination when you want to work with several schools like this. At several steps of the process, of the production process, you are going to send information to the various schools, and they will validate things, send feedback, check the content, and this is of course an iterative process where you start from needs, and then you have all the course definition. Then in green you have the production steps, and then the running of the course, leading to new needs, and etc. Something really a key learning from our experience is that having the teachers from the 4 schools chatting the school of the lead author is something very important, not only for not only to avoid mistakes, but also for them to really get involved in the course and deploy it in their schools afterwards. This is our shared production dashboard. You see the different columns. So this is a tool that I use on a daily basis with the instructors I work with. You see the columns that we had before with the chapter, the module, and here what is very important is not only the objectives and skill of each module, but the content. The content, we give a little details, and we agree on them with the 4 lead instructors representing each of the schools. With saying, for instance, if the module is about is in physics, then we say there will be the definition of this and this and this, and it will be applied to this, and there will be maybe this theorem, and do you demonstrate it or not, that kind of thing. This avoids rework afterwards once the presentation for the video is made. This we have mentioned before. The author, it's quite important that the author will be also using the course. This is reducing communication and matching better the needs. And this production dashboard is also used to follow the production status. So you see the different steps that are in process or finished or planned. And then there are the links to the platform where the instructors can input and also the other instructors can check the content. This is our what our interface looks like for administration, and you see that the different modules are indexed with skills and then are selected to make made-to-measure programs or courses for the schools. And then this is what students will follow, and we can have introduction videos specific to each school, showing the interest of the subject, for instance. So to conclude, the flipped classroom with Open edX for us, there are a few takeaways. This has been now 3 years that we have used this in our group for more than 5,000 students at undergraduate level, and we are now preparing for a master's level. Collaboration with teachers is something which is obviously very important. And the role of each of them is something that has to be quite well defined. And obviously, edX enabled us to split the course into small independent units and organizing flipped classroom with quite a good experience for undergraduates. Well, now I will pass it on to Badi for the second part. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Isabelle. I talked about change, and Isabelle is not telling you here how much hassle we had, but if you have questions, we'll be happy to share about the whole process. What I mean by change is we didn't do flipped classroom as a goodie. It's something that we enforced for all students in all engineering schools. That's part of the curriculum, and they do it from the first year. And they do it for major courses, maths, physics, and IT. So we can talk about change management, obviously, but we didn't give much choices. That's the way we chose to do it at IONIS Education Group. And now looking back, I think we're pretty happy because we can go from creating material with independent units, what we have called micromodules, and that's things that happen here. Basically, from the institutions that we have, we create material, and from there we can go from undergraduate to a lot more different ways to use this content. And I was very happy to hear the keynote this morning, because we've talked about some of the ways that you have to learn today. And if I put in perspective, 10 to 15 years ago, we created schools. We had a lot of schools, engineering schools and so on, but we observed that our audience was changing. People didn't want to just do a bachelor, master, or an MBA, but they wanted to get practical. They wanted to be active. They wanted to actually contribute. And that's one of the reasons why we've been implementing flipped classrooms. We did it because we thought that school, the way we were practicing it, wasn't working. We had people attending classes, basically watching a show. Sometimes the show was good, sometimes it wasn't. And we thought, hey, let's get rid of that. We want to have our students that get practical, come in class to do practical work with each other, the basics behind flipped classrooms, and not just watch a course. So building all of this material, the micromodules, we are today able to, of course, deliver online degrees in the typical shape, masters, bachelors, or MBAs. We do it either in a blended format, so you have some time that will be spent in the institution, some time that will be spent outside in a remote way. But you may also choose to do what Anand was talking about this morning. I think he called it professional certificates. That's basically what we call our continuing education. You want to get better skills, updated skills, or you could choose to go for something that's a bit more practical. I think the big shift now and for years to come is to actually explore more career-specific, focused kind of paths. I want to be a community manager. I want to be a growth hacker. I want to be a whatever, web marketer. And I'm not really interested in pursuing a so-called degree that may allow me to do this job or that job. And I think we're getting more practical. We have people that want to exercise sooner and maybe change job every few years. So you have two ways to access this material. When you are part of our students, you basically have all of the flipped classrooms material that you have access to. And when you are not part of our schools, you may also choose to access content in an open way, and from there choose a path that will lead you to either a career, better skills, or an actual degree. That's, I think, the favorable ecosystems that we have been able to build together with our institutions in the group. Now, talking about the school aspect, I think what we realized a few years ago is that we didn't want to be a content library. We have a lot of courses, and I think it's good that we have courses, but content is only part of what we're doing. We also build project activities that students and other professionals use in order to progress and get better. And we also have, obviously, a big community of experts. And with these three elements that I think are part of any higher education institution, we are able to deliver what students, learners are looking for: recognized degree, skills, much better skills, and an actual career that you can grow towards. Now, there are a lot of pedagogical models, and I'm not saying here that we have the best model, but I think with this process and with this ecosystem, we are able to find the suited format for different learners. So, for instance, if you were in a blended environment, then our content would be part of the solution. Practical projects will be also part of your curriculum, and then you may have also all the sorts of master classes, whether you are assisting to those, attending those classes physically or remotely. But you could also do it in a self-paced mode, and in this case we would insist much more on the projects that are the practical side, and courses would only be here to help you acquire knowledge that you would have to actually use when conducting your projects, whether individually or with a group. I give you an example. I'm not sure about the figures in your different institutions, but for us, a typical master's program, and I'm talking about the 2 years, that would be about 400 hours of physical courses time that you would spend. In digital format, obviously, you adapt and you get much shorter. In a typical micro module, it is about 20 to 30 minutes long with everything and all the structure that Isabelle has presented. You would have about 200 hours worth of material, and that would be about 400 micro modules. So once you have that collection of micro modules, you can use them to build the appropriate path, and you really want to focus on which projects you're going to put in place in order to test and validate that the skill is acquired. And this is something that we do because we think is good, but it's also something that we do because in France, that is the way that you can deliver a degree that is actually recognized by the state. So, along the years, we have explored different formats, and we have seen that you could find suitable something very structured. I have my program, maybe I'm conducting a bachelor, or I'm following a master, and I'm going to start in September. I'm going to have several projects that I'm going to do along the path. and I will have some work that I will do with my peers in groups. I think that's a good model. It works, especially in blended format. But it doesn't suit everyone's schedule, and not everyone wants to wait until, let's say, September or January in order to start the course. Not everyone is sure about the kind of course or the kind of path that they may want to follow. And so we found that the self-paced model is really suited for other kind of learners. Now, typically for blended format, you would have some flexibility, but you would still tie in with group projects and tutors that will support you along your learning. While in self-paced mode, we are somehow more in an open model where you can start anytime, you're not really sure what you're getting into, and at some point, if you want to get credit for what you've done, we'll let you pass certain projects individually, and we'll focus much more on the benefits from the overall community. And so here, we're more in the usual school, you know it, but all in a distant mode, while here we're more into a community management driven kind of school. And I think both have great values, and we'll see years from now whether this model or that model gets more popular. So in order to do that, of course, we were supported by edX, and we've used edX a certain way, but we've also added a few components. Typically, we've added features in order to support the whole project, which is a big part of the learning path. We've added a lot of tools, social tools, collaborative tools. We've added a lot of tracking metrics, for example, whether in flexible mode or in more structure mode. We found that you don't have to force people to talk to each other, but by showing them their statistics, they get some sort of emulation. And so, for example, when you start giving metrics about how much time learners have spent on the platform and what kind of skills they're able to acquire, the percentage of competency that they get, and you display those results within not a whole group cohort, but within a few single individuals. They help each other, and they're able to grow together. So beyond that, we've also used a lot of third-party tools, as well as developed our own tools. Here's an example of a platform that we use. The learners will typically do a lot of projects. Many of those projects rely on video, and they will upload their work and get graded, and both peers and tutors and teachers will add comments in order to help them progress. So, a few takeaways. I think having a unique governance, we are driving the digital transformation of the group helps. Obviously, whatever a business school is able to contribute, an engineering school will benefit from. And at the same time, having a management that believes that digital helps us deliver better education, I think is key, not because education or edtech is good and fashion, but because we think it's efficient. We don't focus that much on courses, we don't focus that much on quizzes, but we focus on results. What kind of skills have you been able to acquire, to which extent, and where can you go from there? So we definitely believe that competency-based and project-based pedagogical model works for us. We think it's good, and we also believe that we have to be able to adjust models, because when we built this structured model, we thought it was perfect, and at the same time we realized that a lot of learners were not able to benefit from it. So the self-paced mode shows that it can definitely help acquire and nurture a lot more people. So, Isabelle, if you want to add a few inputs.
Well, we would like to insist on the change management dimension. This is something that we have put in place in our group among the different partners, whether they are the directions of the schools, whether they are the instructors or the teachers themselves. There is a lot of getting all the people working together, not just learning new techniques, but also learning to collaborate together and not separately. Something that has been very important for us is to think of the scenario independently from the content. Sometimes we can use the content in flipped classroom or use it in project-based learning. So thinking about the scenario and the way you are going to evaluate the students is something quite important and should be thought, well, of course, if you build a new course ahead of it, but then you can think of different ways using the same course material. I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah, just one last word, and we'll be happy to take a few questions. But I think there's a lot of competition out there, and competition not from other higher education institutions. There's competition from everyone that pretends today to train you, and there's a good competition, bad competition. And I'm very excited to see what we can do together as a community, Open edX, because we can obviously benefit from technology, from models, practical, pedagogical ways to do things. But I think if we're not able to adapt also to what people are looking for, they may rely on other big players. And I'm talking about some guys that have big platforms on the web. I think we really have to work together, and so that's our contribution, and very happy to share and learn also from you guys.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hi. First, thank you for a very interesting presentation. I want to ask about the economic models of the joint ventures of the universities. Is it more of like Spock's style, or how does it work in terms of business model?
Okay, business model for us as a private higher education group is extremely important, and we have to be sustainable just like everyone, but we have even to do more. We have to make some sort of profit. That's why we've been away from the MOOC model. We value it for some aspects, but there's no business model, at least not for us. And so today, when we work with our schools and we create material and our schools benefit from it, obviously they pay for that, and but that's internally. Externally, we have today people that follow our online degrees or certifications. They also pay for it. It's much more accessible than if you were paying for the standard way to acquire a master or an MBA in face-to-face. And I'm very happy that it's getting more popular, and obviously we're getting better at having a good business model. That's also the reason why we've introduced this self-paced mode, because we thought that this was still a bit too expensive and still a bit too complicated. So here there's absolutely no commitment. You can start, you can stop whenever you want, and you can eventually pursue few certifications, a bit like the MicroMaster model, and then follow up with a full degree online if you wish to do so.
So just a follow-up question. So the Taylor model or the blended one are ones that universities pay you. So their students that take the course, they don't need to pay any additional fee, right?
You can consider them internal clients.
Yes.
Yeah.
Have you, is there some data available about the completion dates of the people in self-paced or otherwise? So I offered a course in plain MOOCs and also in self-paced. And my observation was that irrespective of both the modes, the passing, the people who actually attempt the final quizzes and all that is always at the end. So whether whatever you keep it open for 6 months as a self-paced MOOC or keep it timed that every week I'll release these things and the final date is so and so. But the people who attempt the quizzes typically would be towards the end. What is your observation in such a case?
The way we solve the problem is by making quizzes and all these kind of evaluations absolutely optional. They are here just to help you get assurance, but in fact the only important thing for lifelong learning programs is the projects that you have to realize. And that's the only important thing. Whether you watch the course or not, we don't care. Whether you make the quizzes or not, we don't care. In undergraduate programs, it's a bit different because they are younger, they are not as mature, and so we are still watching closely, and we have built also tools on top of analytics that edX provides in order to watch closely what they've watched, what they've responded, and whether they are making progress.
Yes. Can you perhaps expand on how projects work and more specifically how they are evaluated?
Actually, the way projects works is you will have a few different courses and you'll have skills to obtain in order to acquire and fulfill the pedagogical objective. And so we'll build a case. It could vary, of course, in the different shape. It could be, let's say, to build a business plan, for example, as part of an MBA degree. And you would have to, of course, work individually also as a group in order to build that project in a technical degree, let's say a master of IT. You will have to build, for example, a web application. And this is what will be evaluated. And that's where automation gets more complicated. If we're only doing quizzes, of course, automation would be easier. When we are doing evaluation on projects, that's where we use our experts in order to help and rate the different projects.
So is the evaluation done synchronously, like a presentation? I created this project.
Absolutely. It is.
And all? Okay. And is it, is it through a video or is it in the same room?
There are various ways. Video is one of the methods that we use, but it's not the only one. It could be coding something and submitting the Git repo, for example. I think we have to stop, but I'll be happy to answer any other questions if you want afterward. Thank you very much.
Thank you.